Dustin in Wichita, Kansas. It says you disagree with me, Dustin, so you go to the front of the line. What's on your mind?
Hi. You were talking about gun control earlier, correct?
I was.
All right. Well, before you went to break, you mentioned that you have a book about Big Brother and somewhat like 1984 and how CIA, NSA are all spying on us, right?
Actually, it's... why are you asking these questions, Dustin? Tell me what you called about.
All right. The main point of the Second Amendment is for self-defense from a POS's rioting or breaking into your house, and for hunting, for recreational, and the most important thing is to protect ourselves from a tyrannical government.
That's a lie, Dustin. That's a lie. Yeah. That's an absolute, that is the worst lie that the NRA has been promulgating since 1974. Give me one quote from any of the founders that said that.
Thomas Jefferson, a well-regulated militia. Don't have it on top of my head. I do.
The Jefferson quote you're thinking of is, from time to time, the tree of liberty has to be watered with the blood of patriots. He said it in response to the French Revolution. It had nothing to do with the Second Amendment. Dustin, just think for a minute. No, seriously, have a conversation with me for a second here. Just think about this. You and I are the founders of this country. We have just put together the Constitution. We have fought a revolutionary war for 5 years. We have seen our friends die to create a democracy, to overthrow a kingdom. We are now secure in our government. Are we going to put into law a law that says, oh, and by the way, if the people ever decide that we, the people who are running this government, aren't doing a good job, that they can shoot and kill us?
Yes.
No.
That's why they have the Second Amendment.
No, Dustin, it's not.
Want to know who took guns? Stalin took guns, Hitler took guns, and Mao took guns. And look what happened over there.
Hitler ran gun clubs, Dustin. Hitler ran gun clubs.
Hitler said Jews cannot own guns, and guess what happened to them? Oh, hey, I'm 6 million dead.
Dustin, okay, pause for a minute. You have gone to argument number 2. You start out with argument number 1, which was that the founders thought that we should have guns so that we can kill our politicians. It's BS.
No, not to directly kill our politicians, so that way we have a power. That we have the power
so
to vote,
we can challenge our military. It is a stupid idea. Do you really think that with an AR-15 or a Colt 45, you're going to take on the U.S. Army?
I would die for my rights, and I'll die for your rights.
Yeah, well, that is not what the founders had in mind. The reason why the Second Amendment was put into the Constitution...
Freedom is never free.
Yeah, a nice slogan, Dustin. The reason why the Second Amendment was put into the Constitution, and Jefferson wrote about this at length, was because they were concerned that a standing army during time of peace was what had overthrown multiple European governments throughout the history of the 1,000-year history prior to the founding of the United States. They did not want to have an army during time of peace. At the end of the Revolutionary War, there were about 300,000 men under arms in the United States, in the United States military. Jefferson did not want that to be the case, and he had a broad consensus. This is why in Article 1, Section 8, there is only one place in the entire Constitution where it limits the ability of Congress to spend money. Only one.
All right.
And Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, you can read it yourself, it says that Congress may not appropriate money for the military, for the Army, unless that may not make an appropriation for the Army that lasts more than 2 years. There's a 2-year time limit on having an Army. It's right in the Constitution right now. That goes. That's the brother and sister to the Second Amendment, because they were concerned that if we had a standing Army, we might have a military coup that would overthrow our government. So the whole point.
A military coup.
That was it, Dustin. I'm telling you the true history here. I'm not being partisan. I'm not trying to make some kind of point. I'm telling you the honest-to-God history. You can look it up.
All right.
You can read it in the Constitution. So number one, they wanted every state to have a militia. Now, there was a broad consensus about this from 1787 when the Constitution was drafted and the Second Amendment's first draft was written, through 1788 when that first draft got modified. over Patrick Henry's objections in the Virginia Ratifying Convention, where he said, because the first draft said for the security of a free nation, a well-regulated militia is essential to the security of a free nation. And Patrick Henry was like, oh, no, you can't do that. It's got to be the free state, because our militia here in Virginia is also our slave patrol. And if you call our slave patrol up and send them off to Massachusetts to fight a war, we're screwed. The black people are going to rise up and kill us all. He came right out and said that in the Virginia Ratifying Convention. And so Madison changed the word nation to the word state in the Second Amendment to protect the slave patrols. Those are the two reasons, the only two reasons, that the Second Amendment was put into the Constitution and was ratified.
All right.
You will not find anybody. I mean, read, James Madison took extensive notes on the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia, in Constitution Hall in 1787. And in fact, he kept them secret until after everybody had died, but they're now published. And you can read what they said when they were debating the Second Amendment, or when they were discussing what ultimately became the Second Amendment, and particularly the conversation that they had around Article 1, Section 8, limiting the military to 2 years. And then what happened was Jefferson came into office as president in the election of 1800. He was sworn in March of 1801, and you had 300,000 people in the military. He cut it down to 3,000. He laid off the whole military. And then when the British invaded us with the War of 1812, we didn't have an army. And they couldn't get the militias of the states to show up to fight back, and they marched all the way down to Washington, D.C. and burned the damn White House. James Madison went off to lead troops. He's the only president who ever led troops. Dowley took the picture of George Washington and fled with it. And after that, after the War of 1812, there was no more debate about whether we should not have a standing army. We've had a standing army ever since then, and ever since that moment, the end of the War of 1812, the Second Amendment has become basically an anachronism. It's become a leftover vestige from a time when they thought that they shouldn't have an army. Dustin, educate yourself, please. Don't just repeat these BS talking points from the NRA. They are lying to you.